We're starting with question number 6 on the Practice HiSet Practice Math Test FPT-6A. And question number 6 is not asking us to actually solve a problem. Instead, it's asking us to set up an equation. And there are several questions like this throughout the test. My advice for these is always the same. Ignore the answers to begin with, okay? Because if you start looking at the answers first, you're going to get a little bit confused. So what I want you to do is I want you to just look at the information that you're given and look at what it is that you're supposed to figure out. So we're told that there's a sale on iris bulbs. The first half dozen is $5 per bulb. The second half dozen is $4 per bulb. And each additional bulb is $3 each. The question is, which of the following calculations represents the cost of 2 dozen iris bulbs? This is all I need to know to solve this problem. I don't need to worry about what's at the bottom here. I don't need to worry about the answers for this. Instead, I'm focusing on the question. So I'm going to move away from the answers, and we are going to look and see what we can figure out. So what we have is our first half dozen is $5 per bulb. Our second half dozen is $4 a bulb. Each additional bulb is $3 per bulb, and the person bought 2 dozen bulbs. Well, the first thing you have to do is you have to know how much a dozen is and how much a half dozen is. So keep that in mind. A dozen is going to be 12, which means a half dozen is going to be 6. So he bought a total of 24 bulbs. That's how many he bought. The first half dozen was $5 per bulb. So that means he paid $5 per bulb for 6 bulbs. Then the second half dozen was $4. He paid that for 6 bulbs. Then each additional bulb was $3 per bulb. So for buying 2 dozen, which is 24, and we've already got the cost of 6 plus 6, which is 12 of them, that leaves us with 12 left over. Okay, so basically what we're going to be doing is we're going to take 5 and multiply it by 6. That's going to be the first thing that we do, and that's going to give us the answer for the first part, 5 multiplied by 6. The answer for the second part is going to be 4 multiplied by 6, and the answer for the third part is going to be 3 multiplied by 12. So to get the total amount that he spent on all of these, what we're going to have to do is we're going to have to add these together. So we're going to take all 3 of these sets of numbers, and they're all going to be added together. Okay, so we're going to take a 5 times 6, add it to a 4 times 6, and add that to a 3 times 12. That's how you would solve this problem. Now we're going to go back to our answers and see which one of these has the same answer that we had. The first one is 24 times 3. So what they did for the first one is they took all 24 bulbs and multiplied them by the $3 per bulb. That's not going to be correct. The second one, they took $5 and added it to 2 times 4 and added it to 12 times 3. That would give us 12, 13, 14, 15 bulbs instead of 24. So that's not going to be the correct answer. C takes a half dozen, multiplies it by 5, another half dozen, multiplies it by 4, and then our final 12 and multiplies it by 3. That is the same answer that we came up with. Even though we wrote it a little bit differently, it's the same answer. So C is going to be our answer, but I'm going to continue on. D took a dozen bulbs and multiplied it by the $5 price, and then took another dozen bulbs and multiplied it by the $4 price. That's not going to get you the answer either. And E took a half of a bulb, not even a whole bulb, and multiplied it by 5. Multiplied another half by 4, and then 12 by 3. What E was expecting you to do is it was expecting you to be confused about what half dozen meant, and they were expecting you to focus on the word half and completely ignore the fact that a half dozen is 6. So our answer for that one is going to be C. Now the next few questions are all, if you look through them real quickly, they're all going to be word problem questions. And a lot of times people become confused whenever they look at word problem questions. But I don't want you to let these confuse you. Instead, I want you to look at what they're saying. Don't skim, read word for word, look at what it is that they're saying and what it is that they're asking you for. So in this case, number 7 says, at a movie rental machine, movies rent for $3 except on Tuesdays when they rent for 49 cents. Approximately what percent of the regular cost is saved by renting a movie on a Tuesday? So what we're going to look at, let me get another blank sheet of paper for us. What we're going to look at here then is we're going to look at what happens when we rent on their sale day. So regular price is $3. Sale price is 49 cents. The question is, what percent of the regular cost is saved? So you have to understand that what you want to figure out is the percent of regular cost, and I'm going to put the word saved, because we don't want to know how much we spent. The amount that we spent was 49 cents. So we want to know how much we saved. But to be able to figure out how much we saved, you have to know a few things first of all. You have to know that $3 is 100% of the regular price. It is the regular price. So $3 is renting the movie at 100%. So what we're looking at is we're looking at what's called a part to a whole. So the whole price would be $3. We need to figure out what part of the price we saved. All right? So to figure that out, what we're going to do is we're going to subtract 49 cents from $3. You can probably do that in your head, but instead I'm going to use the calculator because I don't want to make any mistakes. So $2.51 is the part that we spent. Is the part that we saved, not spent. This is our saved part. $3 is our original price. So we're going to take now the $2.51 that we saved, and we're going to divide it by the whole price, which is $3. And that's going to give us a percent. So I'm going to take my $2.51 and I'm going to divide it by $3. This is going to give me 83.8366, and that last number is going to keep repeating. So basically what I'm looking at here is I'm looking at, when I change this to a percent, I'm going to move my decimal 1-2 spots, and when I change it to a percent, I'm basically looking at 84% as the amount that I saved, okay? Because this is the dollar amount that I saved. This would be the percent amount that I saved. So let's look at the answers. We're looking for 84%, and it shows up right here as 84%. So that tells you how to work question number 7, is that we're looking for that particular type of setup, okay? Question number 8, I'm going to move right on, says the wood floor of a community recreation center is in the shape of a square that is 200 feet by 200 feet. If the directions on a bottle of floor wax indicate that half of a bottle will cover approximately 2,000 square feet, how many full bottles of floor wax are needed to wax the floor? So I want to stop you right there for just a second and go all the way back to our formula sheet that they're going to give you whenever you take the test. Formula sheet is going to tell you the formulas for different things, including area of a parallelogram. What a parallelogram is it's any shape that has sides that are parallel to each other. So that would be, it would have 4 sides and they're parallel to each other. So what we would have with that, let me get a new page. What we would have with that then is we would have a shape that has even lines, not the kind that I'm drawing, but that has even lines. We'll pretend like those are all even with each other, okay? And what we're looking to do is we're looking to cover something completely. So what we're actually doing here is we are taking this shape here and we are covering it completely. Let's see if this works. Yes, we're covering it completely with a particular color, or actually floor wax in this point, okay? So since it's going to be covered completely, we're using area because we're covering the whole area. If we were using perimeter, we would just be looking at the outer edges. But area is like a rug, okay? Area covers the whole area of the floor. So when we go back to our formula, what area is for a parallelogram is its base times height, or the bottom multiplied by the top, okay? So we know that our square is 200 feet by 200 feet. So I'm going to go back to this, and I know that my bottom is 200 and my side is 200 because that's the information that they gave us in the problem itself. So I'm going to take my 200 and multiply it by my second 200, and I'm going to get 40,000. 40,000 is the square feet of this area right here. So the question said half a bottle will cover 2,000 square feet. So we have two options. We can either figure out how many half bottles we need, or we can figure out how many whole bottles we need. A half bottle covers 2,000, which means that a whole bottle would cover 4,000. You can do this math either way you want to, okay? A half is going to cover 2,000, a whole is going to cover 4,000. I'm going to go with the whole for right now because the question asks how many full bottles we would need, and it also says approximately. So we know that it might be just a tiny bit off from where we're looking at. So I'm going to take my 40,000 square feet and I'm going to divide it by 4,000, and my answer is going to be 10. So they're going to need about 10 bottles to be able to cover that wood floor, and B is our answer at 10. So that's how you would figure that particular problem. The next question is another one where we're looking at payments. It's a lot like question number 1. If you watch the video for question number 1, it's very similar to that. So the question here says a couch can be purchased for $500. You can put a down payment of $200 plus 5 equal monthly payments. How much is the amount of each monthly payment? So what we're going to do is the couch is going to cost us $500. It's going to cost us $500. We are going to put $200 down. So we're going to pay $200 just right off the bat for this thing, okay? And then we're going to have 5 equal monthly installments. So we're going to take our $500, subtract 200 from it, and that's going to give us $300. Then we're going to take that $300 and we're going to divide it by our 5 monthly installments to get $60 a month for our 5 months. Now go back to the question, and if you'll notice, one of the answers is $60. So these 3 questions didn't take as long to answer as some of the others did because they're a little bit more straightforward. A lot of times people look at the word problems and they get really confused about them. Read the words and look at exactly what it is that they're asking for, and then you'll be able to figure out how to answer the question.